Hi there, good afternoon. My name is Samia, and myself and Natalia, my colleague, today will present to you Mr. Coventry's personal financial plan. So this is an overall timeline of Mr. Coventry, according to us, from the age of 23 up until retirement. You will see, furthermore, throughout this presentation, smaller and more condensed versions of this timeline for milestones. So as you can see, he graduates at the age of 23, and several different things happen through his life, and he retires at the age of 60.
Okay, we were going to work under the assumption that the inflation rate stays the same throughout his life at 2%, and this directly affects costs such as groceries, commuting, Christmas holidays costs, etc. However, some other costs such as utility bills, gym pass, council tax, etc. are semi-fixed costs, which means that they increase from time to time, but then they stay at the same level. And we decided the same for the personal allowance and tax bands. So the first periods of time we're going to discuss is 23 to 28. This is the time when Mr. Coventry lives by himself in a rented room, paying a bit over £400 a month. And he started investing in fixed income and in index funds, S&P 500, which will be discussed later on. And also from the beginning, he decided to open HSBC and Nationwide saving and current accounts. So these are his savings accounts. The reason why we would recommend him to open these two are because the interest rate is really high, which is 5%. However, they can, Mr. and Mrs. Coventry in the future as well, they can only save up to £250, but it's not a big issue because other spare money will go to other investment. And they are allowed to withdraw annually with no costs. And this is the amount they will save approximately throughout their life to the age of retirement. And these are the other investment we would recommend them to start. So first one is investing in debt, which is corporate bonds in our case. So we decided that corporate bonds is a good investment as it provides higher return than government bonds. Yes, it is a bit more risky, but we decided only to invest in bonds BBB plus and above to avoid too big risk. So this is, fixed income, providing that the company will exist for that time, which is the main difference between equity and debt. There are some risks associated. For example, we can choose that we want to invest only in BBB plus, but they can be downgraded when we are holding them, which is a risk. But this is always associated with any investment. And then we want them to invest a bit in equity as well. So the safest option with really high return, surprisingly, compared to return, is S&P 500 index. So we decided they should invest in an equal weight one rather than in a regular, because as you can see from 2002 to 2018, the return were much higher. And even though this is not such a risky investment because this is a very diversified index, it outperforms many private investments in equity, which is very impressive. So again, there are risks associated such as unpredictability, volatility, and so on. There are some downward trends in the meantime, but we believe that as a long-term investment, it's one they should definitely choose.
Moving on, now we'll take a look at the Lifetime Cash ISA. According to our research, we advise Newcastle Building Society for their Lifetime Cash ISA. At the estimation of the age of 60 is £177,341.88. So why Lifetime Cash ISA and why Newcastle Building Society in particular? So it's a flexible way to save for later on in life. It can be open between the age of 18 right up to the age of 39. You can pay in until the age of 50, and also it allows money to grow free of taxation, which is always good news. The government gives you a 25% contribution on top of what you've already put in, and with a competitive rate of 1.1 interest rate, Newcastle Building Society is very good in comparison to others. So if you're saving for your first house, then you can withdraw this money without losing the government contribution. However, if you do remove this money, withdraw it before the age of 60, then you do unfortunately lose this government contribution. So now looking at the period between 28 and 33. So at the age of 28, we can see that Mr. Coventry purchases his rental property in Morocco. He also gets married and enjoys his honeymoon with Mrs. Coventry, and then therefore decides to move to a 2-bedroom apartment. Later on, at the age of 30, he decides to buy his first car, with a Volkswagen Golf being their choice, which we will take a look at later on. So their wedding, the big day. We decided of a budget of 15,000 would be a realistic budget, rather than just being too small of a budget and not being realistic for Mr. and Mrs. Coventry. We can see here we've gone through several different elements of a wedding, with the venue costing 5,800, cake 280, and these are all researched to their local area, so it's realistic for their prices. This 15,000 will be withdrawn from Mr. Coventry's HSBC savings account, which he opened earlier on in life.
And the investment we would like to recommend is investment in property in Morocco. So why is that? It is quite affordable investment at the early stage of their life, because the property prices in Morocco are much lower than here in the UK. So including inflation, the approximate price will be just above 48,000. And this is relatively a low pricing compared to the short-term rental, meaning that the payback period is only 7 years. So after 7 years, they will just start making profit and they will pay off all of that investment. This could be financed by taking 2 personal loans, one from HSBC and one from Halifax. And why is that? So additional reason why we would recommend them to make this investment is because the rental tax for the first 5 years in Morocco is 0%, so they don't need to pay anything. And it's also, a good investment for their future, because this can be their holiday home for their family. And we decided that they can rent it with Airbnb, and the approximate income they will make monthly is 1,692. In addition to that, Airbnb also guarantees 80% occupancy, which lower the risk of the property being empty. Obviously, there are some other risks associated, such as lack of liquidity when we're waiting for our investment to pay off. And we also need to be aware of unexpected expenses, which can always occur, which is why their budget should be done properly, and they should leave some money for unpredictable expenses.
So now, let's take a look at the cars that Mr. and Mrs. Coventry will drive throughout their life. As I mentioned earlier, at the age of 30, they decided to buy a modest Volkswagen Golf for £10,000. This was financed with a £1,000 deposit and £9,000 car finance. Now, in order to decide whether or not to buy a car up front or to do a lease, we use the if function. And as you can see, the results of this if function was to car finance. However, which we therefore did. So moving on, later on, at the age of 40, he then bought a Grand Cherokee, selling the Volkswagen Golf for £3,500. He reinvested this into his second car and decided to do a car finance of £15,000, and the rest was paid off with his savings. Again, there was £7,500 that was left remaining from this investment. Moving on to his third car, wasn't so modest here, decided for a nice X6 BMW with a car price of £60,000, therefore needing a £40,000 car finance plan and a cash deposit of £20,000 by using this £7,500 from selling this car. So why Volkswagen Golf? They have a strong resale price, as we can see here, and they are very fuel efficient. And why Cherokee? So they are luxurious, but not too overpriced, which is good for like a middle life kind of car. And they are ranked number 6 in the mid-size SUVs. And why BMW? So they are the ultimate carrying, they have the ultimate carrying capacity, and they meet all the latest safety and luxury standards. Also, they look very nice. So now let's take a look at the age between 33 and 35. So at the age of 33, Junior Coventry was born, and they received a cash voucher of £500 from the government, and they decided to open a junior stock share ISA with Hargreaves Lansdown PLC. And later on, at the age of 34, their child begins nursery, allowing for Mrs. Coventry to go back to work. So let's have a closer look at child's education. So actually, as I did just mention, the child does start preschool at the age of 1 up until the age of 4, and the price is £1,300 per month for the first year and £1,200 per month for the second and third year. We decided on Rowan Tree Day Nursery, which is local, which minimises the cost of going back and forth to and from the nursery. And then from the age of 4, Junior Coventry attends a school, and at the beginning we decide on a public school between the age of 4 to 12 at St John's Primary School, and then a private school from the age of 12 up until the age of 18, which is Sherardswood School, with a price of £1,500 a month for the first year and £1,700 a month for the remaining 5 years. And then moving on up until their Coventry University, where Junior Coventry will attend for £11,500 per year is what we predict on the price of inflation, and £15,000 for the masters. So the risks of the university will be funded by the Junior ISA, which have also risks associated. And this could be the uncertainty and unpredictability of the stock market, and also the timing of when Junior Coventry needs to go to school. Unfortunately, these things are quite unpredictable, and the timing and fluctuations within the market could sometimes not work out with when he actually needs to attend university. But why do we believe that Junior Stock and Shares ISA with Hargreaves Lansdown is necessary? So it's a prospect for greater growth in comparison to the cash ISA. There's over 200 funds to choose from in the UK and overseas, and they are investments in trust, bonds and ETFs. Also, with a relatively low charge of 0.45% annually, Hargreaves Lansdown PLC is very competitive with others. So now let's take a look at the age 35 up until the age 45. So they have a lovely salary increase here, with a combined salary of Mr. and Mrs. Coventry of £76,000. The age of 37, the child begins the public primary school, as I mentioned earlier. And at the age of 39, Mr. Coventry decides that it's time to now buy a property here in the UK. They decide on a 2-bedroom in the local Welwyn Garden City, and then they also begin the SIPP investments with AJ Bell Business Solution, which we will concentrate further on in our presentation. And also, as I mentioned earlier, at the age of 40, they decide to sell the Volkswagen Golf and buy their Cherokee for their second car, and make further investments in fixed income.
Yeah, so they decided to buy a house which was financed by mortgage. They decided to take with Santander Bank. So this is 2 years fixed rate mortgage, and they decided they need £250,000 of mortgage because they could afford to pay £30,000 deposit from their investment in the index fund. So the fees are relatively low, only of £999, and the overall interest is 3.8. They decided to take that mortgage for 20 years, and this is how it looked like. So in this table you can see how much of their repayment goes for the interest cover and how much is their actual repayment of their principal. In addition to that, other expenses when they were buying their house was home insurance and council tax, which has these prices, as you can see.
Okay, so now the age of 45 up until the age of 55. Another salary increase at the beginning, now with a combined salary of £96,000. The child now begins the private secondary school, And at the age of 51, the child begins university, and at the age of 52, they make some further investments in fixed income, as you can see up here, and they also decide to purchase that lovely BMW X6, and at the age of 55, they purchase life insurance. And a closer look at age 55 to 60, they have another salary increase of 116,000 now with a combined salary, and from there onwards there will be an annual increase of 2%. As you can see lower down here, the age of 55, 56 and 57, they make further fixed income investments, and 60 is our age of retirement for Mr. and Mrs. Coventry.
Yeah, so it's time to think about their retirement. So we would recommend to invest in personal options as they give higher return because state pension is provided. So according to our calculation, for their age, taking into consideration inflation, they will get around £800 monthly together, weekly, together at the age of retirement, Mr. and Mr. Coventry. But the rest, we wanted them to have more money, more income, so we thought about personal pension. Most of them is concentrated around SIPP, so as we mentioned earlier, they will invest in AJ Bell Business Solutions, but also their investment in fixed income and index fund are under SIPP, meaning that they can withdraw 25% of that money tax-free at the age of 60, and there is also government bonus of 25%. Why AJ Bell? Because yeah, it gives a bit lower return in compared to the previous investment, but it's more stable. It doesn't require all the stress and knowledge about markets, which is good when you get older and you want something safe and stable for your future life. And this is a big company listed on the stock exchange market, which gives some more security. From our calculation, the lump sum they will be able to withdraw at the age of 60 is £132,797. And here, using a goal-seek function, we decided that we would like them to travel a lot when they retire. So we calculated that in order to be able to finance their holidays of 25,000 annually for the rest of their life, they need to start investing at the age of 35. They need to invest 3,928 annually, which will give them this 25,000 every year when they retire. And this is all the accumulated money they're going to get at the age of retirement. So from their saving accounts in HSBC and Nationwide, they will have together £175,561. And on their current accounts, there will be 15,332. Also from all of their SIPP investment and lifetime ISA, the whole accumulated amount is £954,776.33, plus their state pension of almost 800 weekly.
And so, what could they do with this money from 60 onwards? So the advice and options available, according to myself and Natalia, are to continue to invest in index funds, which will help to provide additional income as well as their state pension. A high proportion of this money could remain in savings accounts just to make sure that they are taking full advantage of the continuous growth of their money, and also that we advise them to purchase a retirement bungalow in the countryside, which will allow them therefore to rent their apartment out. Natalia thinks that they should definitely buy a Tesla car because they're electrical cars, and electricity is the future. They are also eco-friendly and safe, and they should also begin giving assets to loved ones unconditionally to avoid high inheritance tax. Now, inheritance tax, what is that? It's a tax paid on assets left when someone dies, including all the cash in their banks, in investments, property, cars, anything a person owns. And by 2020 to 21 tax year, the tax-free amount will rise to 1 million. Now that sounds like a lot, but when you take into account everything that you own as a person, it really isn't that much. And assets left to a married partner in the UK are exempt from such a tax. Furthermore, to the partner's allowance will rise too. However, any assets given to others are still subject to this inheritance tax unless it is 7 years before someone dies. And unfortunately, we don't know when people die. So we definitely advise Mr. and Mrs. Coventry to start giving these things away sooner rather than later. Thank you so much for listening. I've been Samia. This is Natalia. Have a good day.